Magic is as important to D&D as dragons are, but in today's video I'm going to share with you my thoughts on magic and how I represent the concept of magic in my games. Hi, I'm Loki and welcome back to the Lair. Today the focus is on magic and generalized spellcasting in your campaigns. In fantasy, magic is seen as something truly extraordinary. It allows you to perform feats of otherwise impossible nature, to manipulate the energy and matter of the world and shape it to whatever purpose you deem fit. Truly, if spellcasters lived in our world, the real world, they would be revered and respected like gods, like the Olympians for the Greeks as an example. I've always found it weird that spellcasters are viewed as being normal people in a lot of D&D campaigns, and whilst yes, it's difficult to represent your player characters appropriately without them getting too big of a head, if you make them these larger than life characters, I think that representing magic as a dangerous, mysterious and very powerful concept makes players actually feel more valued with their characters. If everyone could cast magic, magic wouldn't be special. This is my way of telling you that I'm not really a high fantasy dungeon master, right? I'm actually more of the opposite. I love low fantasy. Sure, there are still spellcasters, but they are very rare and sought after. If you make a wizard in my world, then it's likely you're going to be one of very few alive. In my campaigns, players are required to roll a d20 when they cast a spell to see if the spell succeeds or fails. They are allowed to add their spellcasting modifier and proficiency bonus if it's 5th edition D&D, and they have to beat a target number, which is 8 plus the spell's level. I call this a power check, and I've seen this idea be used in quite a few other game systems, like the recently developed Shadow Dark, which I've been doing quite a few videos on in the past. The reason I've added this rule into my games is because I genuinely dislike the idea that magic is easy to use and always works the same way. Honestly, it feels a bit boring to me, and I prefer the idea that magic is dicey and can blow back in your own face. Rolling checks for spells also allows the prospect to critical hit, offering players an empowered version of their own spell with additional benefits. Sometimes I actually ask players what they think the natural 20 should be, and that makes players very excited because it allows them to have like an epic moment that they've kind of telegraphed, right? A natural 1 on the other hand is a critical fumble, and this means that players have to deal with the consequences of trying to cast a spell and failing miserably. This idea can be used with pretty much any TTRPG, so you can introduce it as a homebrew rule if you wish, as long as it's kind of like a D20. I don't even think it needs to be a D20 system really. Sure, in 5th edition, it means that you could waste a spell slot for no reason here and there if your spell doesn't succeed, but it really adds to what I think is the value of playing games like this. Spells shouldn't always work. Even things like a cantrip, like the light cantrip, shouldn't always work. In my campaign currently, one of my players would infamously fail to cast light, the spell I just mentioned, for light multiple times, even rolling a natural 1 on a few different occasions, which would cause him to temporarily blind himself and sometimes nearby allies in almost like a flashbang shock, this big bright light that kind of explodes in the face of people. I ended up giving him a custom spell. I rewarded him for his continuous failures, which allows him to actually flashbang enemies. And he thought the whole thing was really, really cool. And I mean, it is, right? These kinds of situations can only occur if magic is more flexible and varied. Dungeon Crawl Classic does a good job with spells, as you roll to determine the power of the spell that you actually cast. So if you're running 5e or a similar system and you'd like a new homebrew rule to create a challenge and a little bit more excitement at your table, consider adding power checks. It is obviously mentioned on my Patreon on the 5e homebrew rule set that I've made. So if you want to see that and more custom rules that I've added to kind of make your games better, check it out. Honestly, that alone is worth $2.99 in my opinion. But you get a lot of other stuff on my Patreon as well. Anyway, Just a bit of a short video today. I'm getting ready for my session today. My players are fighting an Umber Hulk. And the Umber Hulk is a very scary monster for my players to deal with. They don't really understand the mechanics perfectly. And they fought against an Umber Hulk and a couple of other big monsters when they were like level 8 a couple of years ago. And the Umber Hulk almost got a couple of them killed because they were getting confused and disoriented. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys. I'll see you guys next time on Loki's Lair. Until then.